Please join me for Ask the Good Doctor, live today and every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central Standard Time, and 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bring your questions.
Hello, welcome. I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire. Welcome to Ask the Good Doctor. We are here to help you attain, maintain, and reclaim your perfect health through mind, body, and spirit, and issues which affect the human condition. And that's what we are here to talk about today, an issue which affects the human condition. And as you can see behind me, I have a little something up that I'm very proud about. It's called Women Behind the Mic, Curators of Pop Culture. And it is a movement, a book, and a docuseries to come. With me today to discuss Women Behind the Mic are two of my sisters from the industry, the music industry that is, LT Ladino and Lonai Mosley. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, how are you all?
Very well. Hello, my sister Lonai. How are you today?
Good morning. It's so good to see you in person, sort of.
Well, I am so glad to be flanked with my sisters today. Women Behind the Mic is a book that is actually being released today, and it has been a long time coming. We are very proud of it. It is a collective of 22 stories from women about our work behind the scenes in the entertainment industry. And before I was the good doctor, for those of you all who don't know, I was a spin doctor. And for those of you who don't know what a spin doctor is, that is a publicist. I was in public relations for Arista Records and a lot of other companies too. However, this book has been a dream of Michelle Joyce's and ours, and she couldn't be with us today. But Michelle and I got a little frustrated a long time ago, but felt that it was necessary to put words to paper on our experiences in the industry. Now, some people may be saying, well, what is it behind the mic? How are you curators of pop culture? Well, we were there. That's all I have to say is we were there, and we want to talk about some of those things and share them with you, give you a little peek, a sneak peek inside of the book today. I want to start with Lonai, and Lonai has been with me as a sister since the 80s. We first went back when we were just trying to get our footing in the entertainment industry in New York City. And Lonai, I'll let you take it from there if you'd like to tell a story or two.
Oh, okay. There's so many. Where do I begin? Thank you. Yeah, it was an amazing time. It was a lot different in the industry back then. If you wanted to meet and get involved, it was more accessible. You can find out who was doing what, where, any events and so forth. So, you could show up and you could meet and greet. Very different than now. Of course, now everything's social media. But yeah, it was a great time. Had an amazing time, and meeting LaJoyce was just such a highlight because we became fast friends.
Yes.
Sharing all kinds of everything, right? You have $1, I have 50 cents for you. Like, come on, let's make this happen. We're both here trying to, just find our way, find our path, and use our skills and talents, really,
Yes.
earn a living,
Yes. That's one of the things about the book that I can say is that the book is actually an educational tool that can share words of wisdom to anyone who's looking to get a career or attain a seat at the table, as we like to say, in the entertainment industry, because you don't always have to be the one on the mic. That behind the mic, you can make a really good career and you can make really substantial income as well. And a lot of people don't know that. And we want to shed light on that. The impetus to the book was because in this season of documentaries and biopics, the women were glaringly absent. And we thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? Look at that look on LT's face. Say more, sweetie.
Having worked at Jive, Arista, Columbia, Sony Loud, started as a receptionist to a senior VP, looking at a lot of these stories, it was so glaringly obvious that they left us women out. And I don't know if it was intentional or if it was just from just not being very educated on who really was doing a lot of the work. Right. See, one thing I just was talking to someone about is that women, even today, we have a hard time with touting our experiences. It's always about let your work speak for yourself. That's how we grew up in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Well, now when it's brand related or when it's just letting people know who you are, you have to speak up. And for women, it tends to feel like we're being braggadocious or egotistical or narcissistic if we know our stuff. But I always tell people a lion knows how to be a lion. And we as women, we knew what we were doing and we did it very well. And we were confidants and we were dream makers. Right?
That's true.
How do you leave us out of the conversation?
I want to pick up on that point because, as I said, that at Ask the Good Doctor here, we also speak of issues that affect the human condition. And one of the things that we know in this life, that a dream deferred makes the heart sick. Yep. And I want to say that there are no sick hearts today, and there are no sick hearts regarding this process, this project, because we are not being self-aggrandizing. We are cementing. The purpose of this book is to cement the importance of the culture creators from the golden era. And when we start looking at the fact of in this 50th year of hip hop, how women are so left out of the conversation, and it couldn't have happened without a lot of the women. So we're telling our stories. We know for a fact that revisionist history is in full swing. And what we also know is if you don't write your own story, you cannot blame anyone else for telling it. So not telling it. So you must tell your own story.
Absolutely.
That's right. Lonai, what was one of your first jobs, or how did you get started in the industry?
It's funny you should ask because, I was chuckling hearing LT's story because my experience was similar in the sense that back in the 80s, I would say mid-late 80s, when I was walking around Manhattan, I knew why I was here. I came from Connecticut. I would get the Village Voice, get the classifieds, and all of that, and look for industry jobs, look for auditions, because I was in the music industry in my head already. And so I would go up to the Marriott Marquis, and there was a lounge on the 8th floor. I would look through the classifieds, drink my tea, eat my favorite Zabar's croissant, right? And look, one morning I happened to see an ad for a receptionist at a record label. So I had some reception experience when I was in college, and I said, oh, I'm quite sure I can answer the phones and, field some questions about the music industry. I had music industry exposure from an artistic level within my family from my dad's side. And so I felt confident. called the number, spoke to the person on the phone. He was like, well, can you come in today? And I was like, oh, today? Okay, I'm in an interview. So I go in. The question that was posed to me was, what do you know about the music industry? Apparently, I didn't know enough about the mechanics of the music industry other than that I needed to know because it would help support the business that I was pursuing. So with that said, he said, well, obviously you don't know enough. When can you start? You don't know anything. So that was my entree to the music industry at Profile Records, which, a lot of you may know Run DMC. And, there was a host of up and coming artists in both hip hop and R&B at that time. So I worked there, met some friends that were working there, but were moving on to WEA, Warner Brothers, Warner Electro Atlantic. And they called me and brought me in the loop into the temp pool. And so I stayed in there and I got to work at a lot of labels and a lot of different capacities and learn. And then ended up focusing in international marketing, promotion, then on to video production and event production and all that, right? So yeah, it was unusual kind of timing, I think, in a way.
Not really. But you said something, because first of all, you flew by stating that there were people in your family. Tell us about your father and his wonderful experience in the industry.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Yes, my dad was one of the founding members of the Five Satins, which was in New Haven. And some of you may be familiar with the rock and roll classic and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees of the Five Satins. They used to be known as the Scarlets, and they had a song called In the Still of the Night. And it was one of those classics that just kept reinventing itself because it's been in quite a few films and so forth. So with all of that said, yes, I grew up going to the rehearsals, going to the performances and all of that. So I thought I was an industry child, so to speak, and that I knew something. But I quickly discovered that I didn't know anything about the mechanics of the industry. And that's what propelled me to really pursue it, because I said, if I'm going to do this music industry thing, then I need to understand the business.
All right. LT, you even have a similar story. Share, please.
Girl, we are from the same ilk, I swear. Okay, so I claim I'm a self-professed music industry brat, okay? My mother, Guadalupe, was discovered in an elevator. When she went for a modeling opportunity and was in the elevator, a bunch of gentlemen walk on the elevator. By the time she hit the bottom floor, they asked her, do you dance? And she's, a Latin woman. She's like, yes, I dance. And she just was trying to be cool, calm. All these men are around her. She was hired instantly. And 2 weeks later, she was on the road in Australia with James Brown. My mother was a background dancer. She even had the opportunity to stand in when Martha had a sore throat to sing The Big Payback. So that voice that people sample all the time, that's my mama. Okay.
Oh, beautiful.
So I grew up in the backstages of the Apollo, calling the Commodores and Teddy Pendergrass and the Temptations Uncle Al Green. I can't tell you how many slumber parties I missed going to go see Uncle Somebody. And the funny part about it, I didn't know that I was literally being conditioned for a role later, because I saw so much behind the scenes and backstages, and not always the good. People are like, oh, this is a charmed life. I wish I could have done it. But as young children, we saw some things we should not have seen.
That's true.
So by the time that I decided to go into the music industry and not use the connections that I had or the people that I know and start out as a receptionist for Jive Zomba Records, man. Best job ever. I learned within that 5 years how to what I want to do, publishing, marketing, A&R. I learned it all from the best. And I also learned that it was going to be my responsibility to protect my artists so that they weren't in precarious situations that I had seen.
That's very important. We're going to come back to that. I got my start not in records, but in radio. And when I was growing up, they used to call me radio because I would never shut up. I always Lonai gave me a little moniker. What is it? Tell them what Lonai. What was I here to do?
Ooh, I'm here to inform.
Boy, I have always been a disseminator of information. Always. So when I got into radio when I was 15. There was a citywide audition in Chicago at the PBS station WBEZ, and they had a 2-year radio television broadcasting course, but you had to audition, and 12 of us were chosen from the whole city. And I read my little poem, and life for me will be no crystal stair, and ain't been no crystal stair. And the director just fell in love with me, Charles Byrne, God bless his heart. And we used to roll the radio into our classrooms and listen to LaJoyce on the radio when I was in high school. Okay. So I did this program for 2 years. I went to college. I was on the radio, always doing the news, and always, or some kind of entertainment news, and also writing in newspapers. So I was the girl who wrote everything. Then when I moved to New York, of course, I wrote a letter to Bishop Sam Williams, who had his Phi gospel show. He still has a gospel radio show, and sent him my little air check with my commercials and my internship from WJPC, the amazing AM 95 in Chicago. The company that owns Ebony and Jet, they also had a radio station. So I was on that station and I did news there. And then I said, well, I want to move to New York. So I did. And the first thing I did was I wrote Bishop Sam Williams and sent him my stuff. He said, come on down. Yes, come with me. 4:00 in the morning, used to be on the radio with him. Simultaneously, though, when I decided to get my master's degree, went to a temp agency and got a job as a receptionist at Virgin Records. That was in the Brownstone. It wasn't at Virgin Records. It was at Virgin Atlantic Airways. But in the building was Virgin Records, Virgin Travel, and Virgin Atlantic Virgin everything. We were in one townhouse. And Richard Branson just used to come through there all the time, sit on my desk and eat my food.
I never knew this.
Right.
Yeah.
I never knew this.
Yes. Yeah. And so there's a common denominator here, you all who think that answering the phone is beneath you. Don't let it be. But I got that job because they looked at my resume and said, what in the world? I had a degree. I'd been to Spain. I had a Spanish degree in speech and Spanish. They said, why do you want to be the receptionist? I said, I'm going to be going to Fordham University to get my master's, and I need a job where I can type my papers and read my books during the day. And I can promise you that I'll sit here for 1 year while I get my degree. They said, you're hired, because our turnover is like once a month. And I stayed at that job for approximately a year and a month. And I did. To this day, I don't know any more about the airline business than the day I started. The nature of your call, I'll transfer you, please. I went back to typing my papers and writing and reading my books. But it was a beautiful experience to be all under one roof. And so I really got that vibe. And then another temp job, I got placed at Polygram Records in the international A&R department. And oh my gosh, that was just like the best time. And I used to look down the hall at Black music department, and they seemed like they were having so much fun. And I was just jealous. I wanted to be down there with them, but we were doing the international thing. And later I found out that they used to look down the hall at us saying, oh my gosh, LaJoyce is in international. But I was just a temp. And when it came time, I could have gotten the job full time. I had an opportunity at Sheridan Broadcasting Networks, and I chose to go to the radio network. But it was, and there were a lot of other things that happened too, but that I'll say for another time. But those were just the beginning days. And I'll never forget calling Lonai and said that I'm going to be a programming coordinator at Sheridan Broadcasting Network. And we celebrated with a pot of collard greens and some cornbread.
Hey, that was good times.
Those are the good times.
Yeah.
And I want to just interject here the sisterhood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sisterhood that was built during those times, and we were coming up and we were temping, and Lonai and I were just really trying to get and figure it all out. I mean, there was one job that we had. It was one job, but it was two. We shared the one job. And it's hysterical because literally we split, and the guy, Tony, at the limousine company, he didn't care who worked that job, just as long as a button was in that chair. And literally Lonai and I shared one job because it's like, okay, I have to be here. Okay, I have an audition over there. Okay, I'm temping these 3 days. Okay, so I'll go over here. And we did that and put together our money and put together more meals. Okay. On, like she said, I got 50 cents, I got $1. And that's what we did. And that's how we made it.
I love it.
It's true. It really does take a village and a sisterhood. And, and I think if I can, we've all encountered, that typical backbiting environment where everybody's competitive and they're all in that mindset where they think, oh, well, there's just one position, so I have to get rid of you to have it. I think, and I'm not saying it's always been perfect. However, once you understand your worth and your value, you see the value in the partnerships and the sisterhoods and all the networking, because, we all realize you can't do everything by yourself.
True.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah. And I love those humble beginnings, because people, there's an ethic that people want that instant oatmeal effect.
Oh my gosh.
Their life. They want to go in and be Kim Kardashian tomorrow. They don't understand the hard work. I remember being hired for that receptionist at Jive Records on Highland and Hollywood Boulevard. And I lived on La Brea and 6th Avenue, and I didn't have a car. And sometimes I didn't make enough to have the bus money to get there. So I would get up an hour and a half before and walk to work miles, enjoying my time, listening to the music coming out, being prepared, did everything with a smile. You would see me sit there and you would never know anything that was going on, and that I just hoofed it a good 7 miles to work. But that's what you did.
That's right.
You had such a fervor for what you were doing. You loved it. And you knew you were going to be an empire. I knew that I was going to be a VP in 10 years. And if I wasn't, I was walking away.
And it builds character.
That character is great. I never became a VP in the music industry. And by my 10th year, I was a senior VP.
Yes, she was. Let me speak to LT and sisterhood. And Arista Records, we were under the same roof.
Yes, ma'am.
And one particular time that really does warm my heart in a memory, and the sisterhood with LT. Her baby was born, and she had brought the baby to work, and it was supposed to be a day that it wasn't going to be really busy for her, but it turned out to be a crazy day. She came to my office, opened the door, handed me a baby in a diaper bag, and left.
Pretty much.
That baby, we had the time, and I just thought the trust for her to walk in and give me that baby, and she didn't have to announce when she was coming back. It didn't matter.
Because there was no one else I could trust. I knew that there was such a love that you cultivated in that building on those 9-11 floors. I knew who I could go to for everything. And I did so every Monday morning. How you doing? How was your weekend? Da, 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 da. So you build those relationships, sound relationships. I can remember sitting back and looking at my wedding and seeing my team of people. Most of my people wasn't even that much a family because they were all abroad, but they were coming from the building.
That's right.
At Arista, and they were good friends, and they shared those memories with me.
That's right.
And I was at her wedding. I mean, that's just that's the sisterhood we have to this day. Her babies, my boys are her boys, and that's what it is.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. That's it.
Awesome.
Handed over keys to the car to her and told her to take the car.
Whatever we need is what we need. Whatever we did, that's
what we do.
Sisterhood. And unfortunately, when you talk about that sisterhood, one thing that pained me, and I put in the book, I never had a female mentor, and that bugged me. My mentor were Jewish men. Now, I have to admit, I'm part Jewish, so there's a kinship there, but I never had a beautiful woman to mentor me, but I had my sisters.
All right. Yes, we have our sisters indeed. And the book, this volume of the book is volume 1 because it's voluminous. It's called Word to the Wise. And there are many wise pearls and gems from these women. And even if you read the table of contents all by itself, it just tells you, it just gives you such inspiration. For instance, we won't be erased. A woman did that. Watch the magic. Talent won't be denied. Responsibility comes with that, Mike. Manage relationships and expectations. Entertainment is all business. I'm going to stop right there because LT, that's the title of yours. Mic check. We don't call them chapters. They're mic checks.
I love that. That was the best. And that's what it is too. Mic check 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5.
Okay. So tell us about your story in terms of entertainment being all business. That's a statement all by themselves, because I think that people don't understand that The show business is more business than show.
You know, and I found that as I moved out of entertainment, we're looking for that corporate job, and people say, "Oh, you're in entertainment," as if it wasn't a corporation, as if it wasn't a business. No, we just made it look good.
Yes,
we made it look
shiny,
fun, but it was all business. And what I had to learn growing through the industry, as I was being, you know, mentored through the mistakes that you make, and you see the people making mistakes, you learn that, oh, this isn't just about fun and games. It doesn't matter that, you know, every weekend in the summer, we're all in the Hamptons hanging out, or we're here, we're flying first class and on islands. We worked. And when I say we worked from sometimes 10 to midnight consistently. I know that was my hours when I was pregnant, 10 to midnight. Okay. I worked and was out. And once you understand the business, and I would tell people all the time, make sure you learn it from a point. And the best reference I have is the book by Kashif.
Yes.
Ooh, Kashif left us with
everything you better know about
everything you better know about the industry. And I would explain to people that I mentored to say, listen, you want to be a doctor, you go to med school. You want to be a lawyer, you go to law school. You want to know entertainment, get this book, because it breaks down things that you don't consider because you're so, you know, dazzled by the glitz and the glitter that you don't learn how to do the business right.
Yeah.
And it takes one old school person to sit in front of you, and I can tell you what you know, what you don't know, how you know it. And you know what? I'm going to give that prop to Clive. Clive Davis taught me one valuable rule that I've taken with me everywhere I go. Don't ask a question unless you know the answer. And it wasn't about knowing the result of the question. It was knowing whether that person knew the answer or not.
That's right. That's it. Valuable. And Lonai, her mic check is slay those demons.
Woo! Yes.
Yes.
Lonai.
Woo! I get chills just thinking about it. Thank you for that as well, because I am a self-proclaimed demon slayer. And the reason I say that is because I just feel like my assignment has been pretty big. The responsibilities that I've grown to have, and I will say grown because I was very immature, I think, you know, during those days in terms of knowing my worth and understanding, you know, my value, you know, and a lot of young women don't know their worth and their value, so they don't know what to ask for. Sometimes you end up in compromised situations that, you know, you don't necessarily consciously ask for or invite. However, what do you do when you're in that situation? Fight or flight. So I had to learn how to master escape, you know, just defending myself, avoiding confrontations, sometimes even avoiding, you know, being taken advantage of physically. You know, I was a tiny girl. I said I'm 5'3". Back then, I probably weighed $118, if anything. So, you know, a lot of domineering people thought, you know, oh, she's going to be easy, you know, little cute self, you know, we can just take advantage, right? And so with all of that said, long story short, I think it was so apropos when I think I made that statement, and then LJ was like, that's the title of your chapter. I said, okay, awesome. I'm with it because, yeah, that's been the story of my life. And I really feel like I've had to fight. Nothing has come easy for me. I'm not a silver spoon child, even though I had a lot of access early on and a lot of exposure. However, you know, I'm sure a lot of you know, the bigger your assignment, the more they're going to come for you.
That's very
just
true.
how it is.
Well,
the quicker your skin gets tough and your character is developed, you have to really perfect the art of survival.
Yes, you do.
And sustainability.
Yeah, especially as women. I mean, we were in a male-dominant, industry that was done a certain way. And I remember I was transferring from LA to New York, and I was preparing to go there, and I didn't want people to take me seriously. So in LA, you're the little LA chippy. You're young, you're cute, you're tall, you're tiny, you're this, and you know, I control those guys. The New York, I knew the wolves were going to come out. So I did what I felt. I wanted to look the part of professionalism. And one of my best friends, she was enthralled with Toni Braxton, and we chopped our hair all off like Toni Braxton. Wow. But it worked as a weapon for me because I was able to still be attractive and show that strength at the rooms, without having to be hard and be a fighter. I mean, it didn't help that I was a boxer. So I have, I had that fight in me too much, and I could just look at you with a look and you knew.
Walk away.
But I also had a mindset that for me, it didn't matter if the artist was in the studio. I didn't go past 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
There was rules and stuff that I had to set so that I wouldn't be in a place of temptation.
Boundaries.
Or injury. Yeah, exactly. And that comes from, again, that child rearing, spending time at the Apollo and understanding what happens and what doesn't happen and that kind of stuff. I remember I walked into a studio in the daytime, Buddy Guy and Travis Tritt. And I was there to hang out with Buddy Guy a little bit. He was on our label. And Travis Tritt was he was gone. And he was playing that guitar. But he looked at me a certain way. And when he said something to me, boy, did I believe him. And I left too sweet. I was gone.
That's right.
Because the way that boy said something to me, I was like, he's telling the truth.
Yes.
Yes. It wasn't like, oh, that's fun. I want to hang out with him. No.
Right.
Hit the social cues, have your situation awareness and grunt.
That's right.
What we had to do, unfortunately.
And that was pre-Me Too movement. So we didn't have any protection.
There was no Me Too. No Me Too. Your only protection, you were your own first line of defense. Absolutely. And you just have to have wherewithal. Deidre Tate, she writes in the book about understanding yourself. And one of her final, what she would tell young people trying to get into the industry today is know who you are, because if you don't, you'll tread water until you drown. And I thought, oh my God, whatever do you mean? And I understand that. Like, for instance, when you're at photo shoots with people 12 and 16 hours a day, you really have to manage yourself and your decorum and set your boundaries and have your clipboard in a way that says, back off, you can only get too close. One time at Biggie's listening party, I gave him 2 listening parties, the last ones. And I had on, I'll never forget, I had on this brown velvet turtleneck and leggings with boots and a blazer. And
I remember that outfit.
Right.
Stunning.
And Puffy screamed around the room, LaJoyce. And it was a moment at the listening party that the music was changing and there weren't a lot of people talking at that moment. And when he said, LaJoyce, it was like E.F. Hutton is speaking. And I looked over, he said, Biggie thinks you're sexy. And I went, what? And I marched across the room and I said, what are you talking about? You think I'm sexy? Where did that come from? I don't know. Mine must be that brown velvet. I looked down at what I was wearing. I nodded to myself and I went home and threw it in the garbage.
I remember that.
Because the last thing I need is a 400-pound man thinking I'm sexy who I'm in the room with for 16 hours weekly.
Girl, you're right.
Couldn't have it. Right. I never wore that thing. Well, I threw it away. Yeah. But I said, if this is what this outfit is projecting, I'll never wear it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have to have the mindset to have the wherewithal to know that this could equal danger. Even though people say, well, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, or, I've heard Gabrielle Union say they asked me what I was wearing, and it shouldn't matter. But if it gets to the point where it comes to your attention that it does matter, get rid of it.
And it's hard because, in that time, some of us were young women. We wanted to have self-expression of who we were and to be, as we call, fly, and still have to be buttoned up and protected in how we were doing that. And I think for me, again, life lessons, being molested at such a young age, brought that to the forefront very slowly. Like I could walk around and look like a model, but I wasn't, approachable. People knew the industry. My reputation preceded me. I remember some guy said, "Oh yeah, I had LT." One guy turned to him and said, "You was a lie." Everybody knew I didn't do business with anyone in the industry, whether you're an executive,
that's it,
or an artist, because I didn't want anyone to think I slept my way to the top.
That's correct. I worked my butt off.
So instead of being known as the cute girl, I was known as attractive, whatever. But it was more so they saw me as a mother, because once I started having the babies, they were like, "Oh, mama, oh, ma." So they had that level of respect, and I would come to them like a mother as well.
That's correct.
That's right.
Because when you start having to tell them what to do, go ahead, Lonai.
Yeah, I was just thinking, even back then, though, clothes were still more conservative than they are now. I think about it, and I think about how I used to dress, and I know compared to the midriffs and the this and that that's going on these days in the office and school environment, we were still relatively conservative.
That's true.
At that time, but
that's true. But it was necessary, and I got approached by a lot of fashion magazines who would ask me about, "Oh, you always look so nice, and your style." I'll never forget, one lady said, "You always have on a suit. When I see you, you have on a suit. What's with you in the suits?" I said, "Well, one of the reasons why I put one on most days is because I'm cold when I wake up." I put on a suit. That's like stupid answer. She went, okay. Like, why you asked? I'm serious. I'm like, I'm gonna put on everything. But no one could say that they ever saw my skin. I mean, I'd have a scarf on my neck or on a shawl or something thrown over my shoulder. I'll have skin showing. Okay. Because when you come to do the work, that's what it's about, not your curves, even though they may exist. Right. So I have a tribute that I wrote for us that I'd like to read. And it is just simply called "Women Behind the Mic, a Tribute." Making deals behind the mic is her game, and I bet you don't even know her name. What a shame. Discovering and developing stars for the stages, quietly earning those six-figure wages. She's in charge of the show and the flow, and if you don't know, you never know. She's the one in the room we need to mention, working that black girl magic, so pay attention. Classy, sassy, fabulous, and fashiony, making moves behind the mic, working millions of hits. You know we like. Sure, you can be a star and be done. Question, have you got the skills it takes to make one? They've built a strong and unique sisterhood, planting them in record books as history should. Their contributions to this music game have been significant. For decades, though, they've moved in stealth mode like the Syndicate. Now the behind-the-scenes stories are about to be told in truthfulness through books, documentaries, lectures. It's voluminous. Asking yourself, how can I be down? Pay attention and stick around. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready is the best advice ever. Get some education for success for any future endeavor. The only way to attain a seat at this table is to put in that work to prove you're able. What is the acumen behind the mic plight? Ask the women and it'll be done right. Who cranked out the work on the hits you know we like? Now you know. It was the women behind the mic.
That's right. Yes. I feel like I should be tipping my champagne glass right now. That's right. That's true.
And with this Women Behind the Mic movement, because that's what we call it, and initiative, we've also written a curriculum for students because we believe that you can't be what you can't see. So we are going to be available to do lectures and workshops and tours, and we just want to be everywhere. This book is available wherever books are sold. Grab your copy today. LT and Lonai, thank you, my sisters. I love and appreciate you both. Thank you for being here on Ask the Good Doctor, because we know that dreams deferred make the heart sick. And this book is dedicated to every dreamers, because these stories prove that dreaming is still worthwhile today. Right. I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank my team, IW supervising producer, Chris Green, technical producer, and our announcer, DJ Indy, another woman behind the mic. Don't forget to let your eyes shine, cut back on that wine, get good food fast, and go easy on the greasy. Until next time, I'm Dr. LaJoyce Brookshire, here to help you attain and maintain and dream for your perfect health. Let's do it again next week, okay? God bless you.